listening to your album, one of the most prevailing thoughts was this album actually sounds like it took him 3 years to make because it was so high quality.
Yeah.
So like, how long have you been working on this, and how much time did you put into it?
I probably legitimately started on this album in, honestly, yeah, around 2000, probably late 2014 when we started working on the album. Yeah, I would say we started in late 2014. It's went through so many different stages. It started off as just songs that my man Jamie and I was just doing. Then it went to like, all right, well, let's release an EP. Then it went to, oh man, we have a lot of good songs, let's make an album. Then it went from our project to just my own project. Then I had to take some songs off. Then I added some songs. So it was, yeah, I would say definitely 2 years, definitely. The process.
Now, a lot of huge national stories happened over the past 2 years. I'm sure a lot of which inspired content on this album.
Yeah.
Were there any like biggest sources of inspiration for this album like that?
Nah, I wouldn't say there was one in particular that I could think of. Well, you know what? Yes, there was. Maybe both, which was a song that was written with the intent of just putting it on the internet and leaving it as that, never to be on an album, was inspired by the riots in Baltimore after the Freddie Gray death. And so if you listen to the song, you can hear kind of like direct critiques of how one side handles those types of arguments versus how another side handles it. And the third verse kind of approaches somewhat of a solution of mine of how we see or use religion out of context, out of its proper context, most times to promote our own agenda. So I would say that is one song that that was inspired by a particular event within the last 2.5 years. Other songs have just been things that's been festering in me for a while. Some songs were maturations of other songs that didn't come out on Talent and 10th. So like Kanye Rant, Kanye 2009 was that song, was a song that was actually called Shut Up before. That was probably going to be on the Talent and 10th, so we kind of changed the music around, kept some of the hook and some of the samples that you can hear, shut up, going through it. So, yeah, man, I mean, I'm a student of culture, I'm a student of life, so what I like to do is just, it's kind of like the sons of Issachar, know the times and know what to do in the times. And so, yeah, I would say that I'm inspired by all of culture to be able to speak prophetically to it. But I won't still, other than maybe both, I don't think there's a song that I can think of on top of my head that inspired a song.
So what was the like objective going into this album? Because there was a very political, probably the most political thing I've heard in a long time.
Yeah. I don't know if I had, when we first started the project, it was entitled The Introduction of Louis Portier. So there was really no clear like theme other than to introduce myself and Jamie as this collaborative effort. And we were going to just make music that we loved. It's going to be his heart, my heart, musically, sonically, content-wise, and all of us, us two, going to come together and make music. Now, what ended up happening is as you create, you make music out of the outflowing of your heart. Like what is in you comes out. And so no matter if I make a rock album, no matter if I make a pure gospel album about hymns, you're going to hear things that deal with, they're going to have very religious themes, you're going to hear very social, you're going to hear themes of justice, you're going to hear themes of fathering and parenting, because that's just me, and those are the things that are close to my heart, the things that I want to talk about. You're not going to hear a whole lot of songs about nothing, because I just don't, that's not how I operate. Not to say that people who do that is fine, like that's their life, that's the things that they want to communicate. But for me, I'm too close to these issues to feel like I can waste songs and waste lyrics on things that to me are that won't have real, well, I don't want to say real as you, because I don't want to demoralize what other people do, but things that are real to me and pertinent to me on an everyday basis.
Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give people a background of how close you are politically to, working through the AND campaign, and even your stuff before that, like the AND campaign only went public like this year.
Yeah.
You've been cooking this music for longer than that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've realized is that I can talk about it or I could be about it. And so recently, probably like after Talented 10th or during the Talented 10th process of making an album, I just wanted to engage myself more deeply into issues that, you know, determine how our cities were governed, how our state was governed, how our nation was governed. And in that process, I met Justin Giberney, who is a lawyer in the city, and we started the AND campaign together. And so I think the beautiful thing about this album taking so long is that it's kind of like a stew that simmers for a long period of time in order to get all these flavors in it, so that when it's ready to eat, like, you can taste all of this stuff. And for me, I think it was God's sovereignty in making me process through the AND campaign, through having a second son who was on the autism spectrum, seeing the riots in Baltimore, this political season that's popped up, just a load of different things. The Black Lives Matters movement kind of come to this large prominence, because if I'd have released the album a year ago or a year and a half ago, some of those themes wouldn't be as strong and as powerful. And I'm actually glad that I can be a mouthpiece in this present day, that I was able to go through that, and those things help shape some of the content of my album. I think ultimately, whatever I do, there's two things. I want to be true to myself, right? And what I mean by true to myself is not just like true to what Sho thinks. It's like true to who I am amongst the people who I love most, and who love me the most. So that's like my church family, my kids, my good close friends. Like, they know me to be a certain person, and I want to remain that person. I also want to make sure that I'm honoring God in every avenue that He places me in. So if I continue to make music, you know, great. If this album is something that 5 years from now people are like, man, this really changed me, great. If anything, you know, apart from those two things, me being true to God, me being true to myself, the influence that I want to also have with this album is, I guess I just want people to be challenged to not accept the narratives that have been created for them personally and as a community. And that's not just for Black people, that's for people of all backgrounds, but more specifically, especially for Black people, because I think for the one, you think about our history on this continent, we haven't been able to shape our own narrative, because we were brought here, we were told this, we were given names, we were told what to eat, and we've had to create culture out of pain and struggle, and oftentimes, even the things that don't make sense to this day, we still celebrate that. That can be like, for instance, like types of foods we eat. Like, we don't have to eat the terrible part of a pig, but we still do. And so, though that's part of the culture, one of the things that I want to encourage is, and that's just a microcosm of how can we can start to reshape who we are. But ultimately, I believe, and I was hoping that this was driven home in the last song, Piano Break 3 AD, is that there is no true identity outside of the image of God. And so as we start to trace ourselves back, hopefully we trace ourselves back to the beginning, to where God created us in His image and His likeness. So therefore we can have real dignity in ourselves.